Make peace with animal people, turn vegan, make peace with humanity, no more war. Part 3 of 6 on Between Master and Disciples, held in English.
The world gets darker.
Yes.
It feels that way, darker and dimmer, not growing so happily,
Yes.
not prosperous and not simple and peaceful,
Yes.
not easy-go-lucky.
Yes.
Anyway, we are not politicians, but we are free to express our opinion, and if anybody can hear it, it's good.
Yes.
We do no harm. I just express my free opinion.
Yes.
I have nothing against China, and I have nothing against Taiwan.
Yes.
Nothing in my heart. I just want both to have peace with each other and help or grow alongside each other to help the world to become a happier place, a more abundant, peaceful place for all to be in the world, for all to live. That's all I wish.
Yes.
War is never a win-win for anyone. Never.
No.
Oh, God. You know what it's like. Politicians.
Yes.
Yeah, vote for me. I'm going to beat the hell out of them and all that stuff. And because Xi Jinping is waiting for the third term for him to continue to be president.
Yes, Master.
So he feels like he cannot show weakness. That's why they make a big deal of Pelosi coming or anyone coming from America.
Yes,
Master.
And why does Pelosi have to go now?
Yes.
Don't we have enough problems with Ukraine
Yeah.
or Afghanistan or Yemen or Iraq and Iran?
Yes.
Iran is threatening with nuclear bomb already. They never threatened like that before. They say that it's against their religion to have nuclear weapons. And now they also threaten like that. And North Korea threatens also with nukes.
Yes.
And Ukraine is ongoing like that. Even though the whole world has Ukraine, still the war doesn't stop.
Yes.
We should have had enough like that. And Pelosi insists she has to go to Taiwan. She went around Asia anyway, Japan and all that. And then we stopped by Taiwan. It's announced already she'll go tonight. I saw it Tuesday night. This is truly the wrong time, the wrong decision, and provocative. It's all just fame grabbing and recognition seeking. But if anything happens to even one of the Taiwanese because of her trip, if any harm comes to them, the blood is on her hands.
Yes.
It's just for her own fame-seeking desire and ambition, nothing more. But the price is almost 24 million people in Taiwan.
Yes.
And many young Chinese people or commanders, etc., will be involved, will be harmed if war breaks out.
Yes.
And it's not only that, the whole West will respond on such a scale that it will become like World War III.
Yes.
So the whole world is at risk with one trip of hers to Taiwan at the wrong time. The situation in the world is already very tense.
Yes.
And the war in Ukraine, I told you already, even the whole world supports Ukraine. The war is still dragging on. And Ukrainian people are still dying and suffering.
Yes, Master.
Millions of people go out of the country to avoid the tragedy for their children, their elderly and women. And they became beggars.
Yes.
It's not like they are always immediately accepted by all the countries in the world. And they suffer a lot, immensely from all kinds of pain being refugees.
That's right.
But at least the Ukrainians can go because the Ukrainian passport is recognized everywhere. And Ukraine has many neighbors in Europe, so they can just stream into other neighbors easily, no matter what.
Yes.
But Taiwan is a small island. Where would the people go? Huh? Where would they go so quickly? Not everybody has money to afford to go abroad.
Yes.
Yes.
And not all in a massive exodus like that. They will not be accepted as a refugee so easily anywhere. I'm not sure about that. If their visa even allows them to stay anywhere long.
Yes.
And then if they're not accepted, what would they do? Return to Taiwan and face the penalty? Face the punishment from the Chinese Communist Party? They don't tolerate anyone who so-called betrays their ideals and policies.
Yes.
Up to now, still freedom, democracy, and communist authoritarianism are still polar opposites.
Yes, Master.
So if the Taiwanese go abroad to avoid the war or during the war, if they're not accepted anywhere and they come back, they will be in big trouble with controlling China if China wins.
Yes, Master.
Even if Taiwan wins, there will be bloodshed and the normal Taiwanese citizens will suffer too much.
Yes.
And then the infrastructure and farming disruptions and all kinds of destructive things will happen in the war naturally. So if anything happens to Taiwan because of her trip, she will never get out of hell, no matter who she is. And blood will be all over her body from head to toe, not just on her hands. Because she will be safe in America. The war would not be in America. It's far away from her hometown, so she couldn't care less how many people, Chinese or Taiwanese, die.
Yes,
Master.
She just goes to Taiwan so that people think, oh, you're a big shot, tough woman and all that BS. For what anyway? Huh? For what? As I said already, it's the wrong time, wrong motive.
Yes.
And if anything happens to even one of the Chinese or Taiwanese people because of the war, hell is her only hope, and blood is on her hands.
Right.
Yes, right.
I just hope that the Chinese leaders and government really are smart enough and calm enough to look at Pelosi's trip as just an ego trip.
Yes, Master.
Because if somebody is representing the devils, then there's nothing else we can talk about. So they should take her ego trip with a pinch of salt instead of escalating it further and making her more like a very important big shot for nothing. Just a woman's ego inflation.
Yes, understand.
When they are in a big power, of course, they will have their ego more inflated. That's normal. And I hope the Chinese government continues to maintain a peaceful relationship with Taiwan, America, and the world, and not blaming everyone else for this evil woman's ego trip.
Yes, Master.
She just wants to be more famous, more recognized. That's all. And I hope the Chinese government doesn't fall for it.
Yes,
Yes,
Master.
Master.
There's no need to make a big deal out of it, to make her look even bigger. She's not the only one. She's not the first House Speaker that came to visit Taiwan.
That's right.
There was one before, Newt Gingrich. So what's the problem?
Yes,
She's just a very old woman, bored with her incriminated husband, bored with family life, and bored with the old audience.
Her timing is perfect. And can you think of a better way to distract from your husband's DUI hearing on Wednesday than to fly into an Asian hornet's nest and scramble the U.S. Navy?
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrapping up her very controversial visit to Taiwan, but her husband facing some legal troubles thousands of miles away. Paul Pelosi said to be arraigned this morning on DUI charges stemming from his car crash in May.
Just an hour before his arraignment, we are learning new details about Paul Pelosi's behavior the night of his DUI arrest and how he tried to curry favor with the arriving officers.
There were a series of injuries involved, serious ones. Both cars were totaled. There were drugs involved, not just alcohol. And Paul did hand cop something that wasn't his driver's license. And just today, on the eve of the hearing, the judge has been replaced in a blatantly corrupt move. Court documents now show Papa Paulie P was absolutely plastered. And that, quote, his eyes appeared red and watery, he was unsteady on his feet, his speech was slurred, and he had a strong odor of alcoholic beverage emanating from his breath. The report goes on to say that Pelosi was under the influence of an alcoholic beverage and a drug. And he failed several field sobriety tests, miserably. This report has shed some light onto the injuries of the victim as well. These injuries were much more severe than we were told. Originally, they said there were no injuries. And then it was, oh no, these injuries aren't that serious. Well, the victim has reported the day after the collision, quote, pain to his upper right arm, right shoulder, and neck. It was also difficult to lift things with his right arm, and he was suffering from headaches and from fatigue, and is being treated by a physician. Remember, District Attorney Allison Haley, hey Allie, her entire justification for charging Pauly with a misdemeanor instead of a felony is that the injuries, she said, were not serious. Now we know they are serious. When asked to hand over his driver's license, instead, Papa Pauly P fumbled around and then handed them a donor card, specifically for the California Highway Patrol. In other words, implying, hey guys, I'm a donor, and I can be an even bigger donor if we can, work this out. What also happened today, the night before the hearing, the presiding judge has mysteriously stepped down, and a new judge has been quickly installed. So, who's this new judge? You're not going to believe this. Her name is Monique Langhorne, and she's a registered Democrat whose previous job, are you ready? She used to work for the Napa County DA's office. Does Judge Langhorne have any experience in criminal cases? No. This would be her first. And it gets better. Guess who donated to this judge's campaign? The assistant DA who's going to be prosecuting the case tomorrow. Can you say rigged? Look, we get it. Paul's married to a California bigwig. He and Nancy are Golden State royalty. But they shouldn't get a free pass.
So she just 6 new uploads abroad. That's all there is.
Yes, yes.
The only thing you should react with is just contempt.
Yes.
Because she couldn't care less about how many people involved suffer or die just for her ego inflation.
That's right, Master.
So all the Chinese and the government should react with is just contempt. She's not worth their effort to make such a big deal.
Yes.
Just treat her as unimportant.
Yeah, she's unimportant. She's old already. It's like a candle trying to flare up right before it's extinguished by itself. Or the juice is running out from her, that's why.
That's right.
Dire warnings from China. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi is currently in Taiwan. Now, her arrival prompted a furious response from China as her plane touched down on Tuesday. Over 20 Chinese military jets entered Taiwan's air defense zone. Within an hour of her landing, Beijing announced that its army would conduct a series of live-fire military drills in the air and at sea around Taiwan from Thursday to Sunday. It warned ships and aircraft not to enter the affected areas. Beijing also summoned the U.S. ambassador to condemn Pelosi's trip.
With Nancy Pelosi meeting with Taiwan's president and other high-ranking officials, many aspects of this trip is under scrutiny. One aspect is the legacy issue, with Nancy Pelosi expected to retire sometime next year as House Speaker. This trip may have a bookend value.
Pelosi was given a rock star welcome, with crowds chasing her entourage for a glimpse of the US Speaker as she arrived at her hotel in Taipei. Precisely the kind of open display of affection that will so anger Beijing. President Biden, the White House and the US military didn't think this was the right time. It was a bad idea for her to travel to Taiwan right now, given escalating tensions between China and the US and that warning from President Xi himself about her playing with fire.
Taiwan is in a very sensitive and difficult place. An area this small with 23 million people against a 1.4 billion is not sustainable.
In the New York Times today, columnist Thomas Friedman calls the visit to Taiwan utterly reckless. He writes, I quote, nothing good will come of it, and a Chinese military response could result in the U.S. Being thrown into indirect conflict with both a nuclear-armed China and a nuclear-armed Russia, this at a time when Europe's attention is focused on the war in Ukraine, and therefore it will not have the help of its allies in Europe, he says.
She just wants to live it up, be recognized, and go down in history as something.
Right.
Yes, to show that she still has power.
Yeah. And all that. It's just the dying candle, that's all.
Denmark is providing great international leadership with their strategy to shift to plant-based foods. And it's the first time in history that Denmark has given priority to plant-based foods through their subsidies. Nicola Harris, vegan.